You know, I felt we just needed a few moments just to savor that. Thank you. That was a gift on this Palm Sunday. And I got to admit, I saw Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I'm like, dadgum, the guy did Cats, did that. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece and beautifully done. Thank you so much. But do you just are you getting weary of it all? I mean, you read the news from Ukraine and it just weighs your heart down. You hear the news that another wave of COVID might be coming, and you think to yourself, really? Again? And then you go to the grocery store or the gas station and you see the prices keep going up and up. And you think to yourself, when is this going to end? How much longer am I going to be able to afford this? And that doesn't even take in all the regular stuff of life. Chores to do, errands to run, bills to pay. And if you got kids, you got them to take care of, or if your kids are older, kids or grandkids to worry about. You got aches and pains. And if all of that doesn't even take in the big stuff, big rifts in relationships or struggles at work or in your finances or scary health problems, the list goes on. It can be so much. But do you know, you can have joy. You can have joy every day. You can have joy on even the hardest and most discouraging of days. You can have joy on the darkest of nights. How can that be? How does that even happen? In the words of this ancient song, God shows you the way. So let's listen and hear what God has to say. The words come to us from Psalm 126. Listen and hear the word of the Lord. When the Lord restores the fortunes of Zion, we will be like those who dream. Then our mouths will fill with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then they will say among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. Great things has the Lord done with us. We shall rejoice. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the watercourses in the Negev. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Those who go out weeping, burying the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy. carrying their sheaves. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. In these words, God shows you the way to joy on even your darkest days. Now, what way does God show? God shows the way to joy, even in hard times, is this. When the present looks dark, you embrace the brightness of what by God's grace is yet to be. Now, before you can get to embracing in the present what is yet to be, you got to face this first. Forget the future for a moment, because you're likely not living much in the present right now. Before you can embrace the future, you got to get present to the present first. What do I mean? Most of the time, you and I are not living in the present much at all. Instead, you're stewing over something in the past, some insult or hurt, some nostalgia for how things used to be before COVID. Or maybe you're worried about some hypothetical future, how you're going to get everything done on your to-do list, or what's going to happen with your kids or grandkids or your finances or your health. Or maybe you're just simply numbing yourself to the present by gazing at your phone or checking out Netflix. Whatever it is, most of the time, you and I are not all that present in the present right now. It's why the Quakers had this saying, be present where you are. Are you present? Are you like, oh, what's he going to say next? Be present where you are. Because too often you're not, I'm not. Our minds are somewhere else. But as someone once said, the present is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And embracing God's future begins with first staying more in the present, in the gift of each moment, being present where you are. But even as the present has its gifts, its glimpses of beauty, sometimes the present is pretty awful too. If your present is cowering in a basement, hiding from Russian bombs, or grieving loved ones ruthlessly killed by soldiers in a rage, that is awful. Heck, reading about those atrocities in Ukraine feels awful. I can't imagine living them. And an awfulness gets more immediate than a war in Europe. You face a brutal rift in a relationship that rips your life apart. You face a loss from which you struggle to recover. You find yourself discouraged and in despair, and you don't even know altogether why. Now, for those who sang this psalm, their present looked awful too. Years before, a superpower had invaded their nation and destroyed their capital city. Sound familiar? And not only did those conquerors destroy their nation, they ripped these people right out of it. They kidnapped them. They forced them to live in exile 1,000 miles away. Yet amid that awful present, what do they sing? They sing this song full of joy, full of hope. How could they do that? They were remembering that exile was not the end of their story. Restoration was. Amid what was, they looked toward what was yet to be. They didn't know how it would happen, but they knew that somehow, some way, God would get them there. God would restore their fortunes. Yes, they would sow in tears, but they would reap with shouts of joy. And what an awesome day they imagined that would be. So in the darkness of the present, they embrace the brightness of their future, of that future, of God's future. And doing that, even in that awful present, brought them joy. This past Monday night, folks from our congregation gathered with about 1,000 others to address problems in Broward County, our county. Now, we got exciting commitments from our state attorney to move more adults into pre-arrest diversion programs like Sheriff Galtieri has done in Pinellas County. Been very successful there. But at the same time, this other government bureaucrat stonewalled us in a way that made me so angry. You see, over a decade ago, our county adopted an ambitious goal to move our county's tree cover from 18% to 40%. Why? Because if we did that, we would reduce the heat in our county, our whole county, by 15%, not just where the trees were, but everywhere. And with global warming, that is a big deal. But our county had made very little progress to this goal. In the 12 years since they had adopted it, we had moved from 18% tree cover to 20%. In 12 years, they had moved 2% towards the goal. Now, we weren't asking this bureaucrat to make the goal happen. We were just asking him to draft a plan for how it might happen over, say, 10 years. But he refused to do that. He refused to even consider developing a plan to accomplish the county's own goal. It wasn't our goal, it was their goal. Instead, he lectured us on what we needed to do at our meeting. Oh, he got me so hot. The next morning, as I did my morning walk, I was still fuming. I was not present in the present at all. I was still back in that meeting, angry at that bureaucrat's arrogance, his hard-headedness. And then I remembered this song. I decided to embrace God's future amidst a frustrating present. I imagined, what would it be like when this bureaucrat became our ally? He wasn't a bad guy, he just didn't get it yet. When he did catch the vision, when shade trees did get planted all over our county, I imagine neighborhoods, often the poorest one, that now have hardly any shade at all, full of those trees, of a county cooler and safer for everyone. And the more I imagined that, the more my anger fell away. I found myself back in the beauty of the present, of a beautiful morning as the dawn began to happen. And more than that, I felt joy. Joy at what could be, at what, with God's help, would be. Think about it. Even as you face the awfulness of Ukraine, imagine a time where peace does come, where that nation does get restored, where justice does get done to those who have done terrible things. And do not think it will not happen, because it will. My son has been watching the Captain America movies. And since Captain America's story began during World War II, he's asked me about that war. And I've told him about the awful things that happened, the awful things the Nazis did, all the suffering and destruction and loss. And then he asked me about those countries we fought then. He asked, are they our enemies now? I said, no. Now they are our friends. Now they're helping us and Ukraine stand strong against the Russian invasion. This song proclaims a truth you and I need to remember again and again. When you are facing an awful present, know this: your present is not the end of your story. God has a bright future even for the darkest of days. As I've said again and again in this series, the darkness is never the end of the story. The dawn is. And for those who sang this psalm, all they could do was imagine that dawn. But we have more. We have seen it. That's what Holy Week is about. That's what the table of communion is about. For us, what is yet to be has already begun to be what already is. You see, at this table, We meet a Jesus whose light is already with us, even on our darkest of days. And how can we know Jesus will be there in our dark moments? It's because Jesus already went into ultimate darkness on the cross. And Jesus went into that darkness for you, so that no darkness exists in your life now where Jesus will not go. And why did Jesus go into the darkness of the cross? He went there for the joy of you. In Hebrews 12, it tells us that Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, disregarding its shame. And what was the joy set before Jesus? You were that joy. You are that joy. Jesus endured the awful present of the cross because he was embracing the brightness of what was yet to be. The joy of saving you, the joy of bringing you home, the joy of bringing you into the brightness of God's light. And for that joy in Jesus, God would do whatever it cost, even God's own life, to make that future happen. And it did happen. And Jesus, on that cross, God entered into ultimate darkness and utterly defeated it. So you can know, no darkness has the last word. Your darkness doesn't have the last word. The world's darkness does not have the last word. God's love does. God's love for you, God's love for this world does. And in that love, you have a future with hope, no matter how dark things get. Because nothing stops God's love. No darkness defeats it. In the end, the dawn will always, always, always be the end of the story. That's what Holy Week proclaims. It's what the table of communion proclaims. And when you know that, you can have joy. You can have joy on even the darkest of days. So come to this table and taste and see that the Lord is good. Embrace the future that is already here, the love that is already working, the hope that will not fail to overcome. Come experience the joy of a future that has already come to you, that is present with you, with this world right now. And in that joy, go forth to share that love, that hope, that joy with a world that too often knows it not. Amen.